You brought us a world we've never seen, with computers and coding, a brand new dream. With Scratch, we've learned to create and explore. Coding and computers aren't scary anymore. Your kindness and time mean more than you know. Thanks to you, our future will grow and glow. Thank you, Lace Up for Change.
So I can't get over today, Derek. Um, and thank you. I mean, this little
That was a
visit
good
to
day.
this closing of 3 months at Dietrich Moravian, with this kid start coding. Started with a simple phone call that just very quickly went yes. I think, I mean, let's record this Teams call and share with the greater audience in terms of what today was all about. What we have to acknowledge with this program before you go into your presentation, Derek, is to give a big thanks and appreciation to Syntel P2I Limited for kickstarting this program, for buying into the vision, and seeing the potential that this has. And I hope watching this video now can see just what their contribution back in August has made to help us get this program off the ground. So thank you, Syntel. And I think it's important for those who don't know the story that we a little background to who Lace Up for Change is, and our evolution, so to speak. So December the 16th, 17th, Lace Up for Change would be 8 years old. And it's always been that idea of using sports as a medium to facilitate change within impoverished communities. We probably became better known for our Boober Run projects, where we were going out feeding members of impoverished communities, feeding people sleeping on the streets, which was really, really amazing. Started looking at ideas around empowerment. Did some school shoe campaigns. First really truly empowerment project was the tablet computers we did for Talfala Primary School in Manenberg. 20 tablet PCs, all linked to the Vodacom network, with access to the e-learning portal, Vodacom's e-learning portal, which was really, really awesome. And then COVID hit, and feeding took the front seat again. The thing we kept noticing is that the queues for the feeding was getting longer and longer and longer. Fortunately, in the communities that we focused, we were fairly consistent with our feeding. When restrictions lifted, the queues were still longer, and getting longer. Then, it was around about that time that we formed this relationship with Syntel. I cannot thank Syntel enough for the support that they've given us over the last, it's almost 4 years now. And it started with Dietrich Moravian, and upgrade the computer lab by putting in 20 new PCs. And there an idea started dawning when we launched that lab. And we realized that for grade 7 learners, 1 in 10 kids knew how to use a mouse. My 3-year-old nieces and nephews know how to use a mouse.
Take those things for granted, eh?
Exactly. And you know, we were really hoping that now that they had the equipment, this would evolve. 6 months later, we had another little project at the school, and then obviously we were checking in, how's the lab doing? And it wasn't really being used for anything other than green shoots, which is a math program. And having this IT background, I kind of realized that this lab is actually being wasted. It's capable of so much more. And by diving in and asking the questions, we came to realize that nobody at the school really knew how to make use of the computers. And that's when we introduced the computer-based training modules. We did the CBTs for an introduction to computers, computer hardware, the basics, an introduction to Windows, and then an introduction to Microsoft Office. And there things started growing and things started happening. We the teacher's assistants. One is no longer at the school, which is a great story because with the skills they learned from the CBTs, they were able to get a job within a call center.
That's good.
Then they started doing computer lessons based on what they learned to members of the community and offering services like helping with CVs, etc. And it was like we're onto a winner here. And again, the geek in me goes, so what more can we do? And that's when I called you. And it didn't take very long into that conversation. And you said, yes, I'm in. And it was basically about how do we introduce these kids to a broader world out there.
But let me share the slides. I must say, just on that, the moments like today makes it all worth it. The Saturdays that we used to spend with the kids. Obviously those Saturdays itself was a reward in itself, but just closing off the year with the kids today was actually quite a great day actually. So let me just share the slide that we did there. Okay. So it just to sum up the year and what we were about with regards to specifically the Kids Start Coding program. Obviously Let's Up the Change has been doing quite a variety of different things, but for this slide, I'm just going to focus on the Kids Start Coding program itself. So just to go through that, it's not switching here. There we go. What we wanted to do and what we discussed between you and I, Faisal, was the one thing is that we want to make sure that the kids are empowered with at least the ability to use a computer, and also with regards to the ability to code as well. We'll have the principles of coding, because there's two things. One is if they're going to high school now and when they're going to the work environment, kids that they're going to get involved in and the work colleagues that they're going to get involved in will be a lot more further with regards to them, because we are dealing with kids that like you say don't have computers at home. The only ability they have to actually have access to some form of technology is a phone, the parents' phone most of the time. So in essence, these kids only get exposure to those computers when they're at the school. And like you said, they didn't really use it much. And the idea is to show them what the power of that computer can do, what it can unlock for them, both when they go to high school, when they have to do projects and research and all those things, and then also when they go to work, eventually when they get to a working environment. That's the one thing. First is empowering them, and also to creating that passion for coding. Back in the day, coding was like people like Bill Gates with glasses and pens in their pockets and stuff like that. It's the coding is becoming now a thing where if you don't know coding, you're probably going to be left behind, because this day and age the technology is evolved in such a way that at the end of the day you have to have some kind of code experience to be able to do work. For example, in Excel, in the last few months, they've included Python in the Excel. Python in the Excel part of the formulas, so you can write macros now with Python in there. So, if you don't know coding in any work environment in the future, you probably will find yourself at a disadvantage with people that do know coding at the end of the day. So we want to give them that ability as well. And also, like you said, we have a commitment at the end of the day with what we learned. You and I started with knowing nothing. Computers, we didn't have internet at the time. Internet evolved as we were in our working environment, and we had to learn. We didn't learn from a web page. We had to learn from a book, or we had to research it ourselves.
I remember. So sorry to cut you. You're actually just making me think there now of first year at college, and I was at the AAA School of Advertising out of high school. And that was actually the first time I got exposed to a computer. And I was like, what the hell is this thing?
And the thing is that's the example we have, but we have then. This is reality now. these
Yeah.
kids that we taught and trained don't have that ability. They don't have exposure to internet. They don't have necessary exposure to research those things. They don't know what to research in the first place.
Yeah.
So, the idea is that we want to, from a grassroots level, start growing that and paying that forward to them, showing them what we've done going forward. And then that way leads us to the last point, it paves a way for tomorrow. At the end of the day, I think South Africa is involved in a lot of things that's driven technology. I mean, we are seen as a technology country. Yeah, I think this is. I'm stealing this term from you. Leveling the playing field. We know that these kids are already at a disadvantage. They're really starting at a disadvantage. I mean, my kids, your kids, they all have computers. They all have some form of computer in the room. They have the internet with them all the time. I don't know. I dare to think what will happen if our kids don't have the internet for half an hour, but they have exposure to that all the time. These kids don't, so you have to make sure that when they're in front of a computer, they get the most out of it as best as we can, and we need to expose them to those things. I mean, I remember this where we took them the one weekend where we took them on Google Maps and show them how to walk around past the Statue of Liberty. And what is the other one you said? There was somebody else's.
They were in Lisbon, Spain.
Lisbon, Spain, yes. And I mean, this is probably going to be the only time that these kids are going to be exposed to what the rest of the world has, experiencing from a street level perspective. I hope they all get to travel the world eventually, but chances are that maybe they won't. And this is us showing them, what the world looks like outside of South Africa and outside where they stay. That's a learning experience on its own for them.
And I think it's about creating a space where they find that there's a world bigger than the little farming community that they come from.
Exactly. I mean, these kids have to walk to the school every Saturday to do the course. And I mean, some of them were sick and some of them have to walk quite a distance, but they come every Saturday. And the reason for it is because they want to learn. They want to get the advantage of not staying on the farm and trying to get careers outside of just that.
Yeah. Then the one kid walked almost 4Ks every day just to get there. Every Saturday morning. And she didn't miss a session, eh?
No, she was in all the Saturday sessions. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we definitely want to try and level their playing field so that they get the same advantages that our kids have, and they can compete in the same marketplace as well. So what we're trying to do for now, where we are at this moment, we're taking baby steps. We'll talk about that a bit more, but we're trying to make sure they have at least 4 things. So the focus that we had with these grades 6 and 7s was computer literacy and Scratch, and we kind of did it in September. We started in September, and we now here in November, end of November. So we did quite a quick course on computer literacy and Scratch, and these kids learn so quickly to at one point I was doing 1 game per week. Eventually it got to I had to do 2 games per week so we can actually focus on it. Eventually I ended up having 6 games in the last week, just so I can make sure that we don't run out of games for them to create and code. So it just shows how quickly they accelerated from us doing 1 game, and it lasted us the whole hour and a half of the Scratch side of things. They're accelerating quite quickly with regards to how they're learning. So this computer literacy was definitely key in Scratch for them. And what we're hoping to do is, is to now start switching to Python and HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Python's key. Python currently is the #1 language in the world. It's been used mainly for now it's been known mainly for AI. It's kind of the fundamentals of AI. You use Python with regards to it. People in NASA use it for scientific notations and calculating, trajectory of how the spaceships and rockets need to go. It's used in data science quite significantly, using large amounts of data. LLMs, which is learning language modules, is basically giving the ability for computers to understand humans. It's a very essential part of AI. It's also a lot of its foundation is based on Python. So definitely Python will get them to a point, robotics as well, sorry, will also get them to that point where they can actually use a code language. And Python is not a difficult code to learn, and it's fundamental code which you can kind of utilize across other languages as well. And then also you want to get into front-end development, web page design. So, it's things like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and we want them to start building web pages as well for themselves. JavaScript itself is a foundation language for things like React and Node.js, and then eventually Angular and Next.js. And that's kind of what most of the websites are built on nowadays. So if we can get them just to that foundation, the rest will follow. So definitely trying to get them their foot in the right place with regards to both Python and HTML and CSS. And that's kind of been that's going to be the focus for us definitely for next year. Yeah, so our approach, I know there's a lot of learning resources online, and I'm not going to knock any one of them down. It's just that our approach is slightly different. We're talking about kids that don't have access to the internet, so they can't go to a learning website. We are talking about kids that don't have the ability to pay for courses, and they don't have the ability to get transport to a venue. So what we're trying to focus on with regards to Lace Up for Change, and what you and I discussed back then was, we need to go to the kids. They mustn't come to us. They mustn't go online to find us. We need to go there and have that one-on-one interaction with them. It needs to be something where we work with them and they work with us. And that way you get almost that immediate feedback. The thing is that when you present something and you can see that they didn't take to it or they're not liking it, you can adjust and you can work with them. You can see who's struggling. You can sit with them, and get them all at the same point, and then you move on. And that immediate feedback is so important. Having a face-to-face, a learning session with them. I mean, in those classes, yep.
No, sorry, just to interject, and it's one thing I appreciated in terms of the evolution of the course between September and today was the fact that immediate feedback. We started to see what was working and what wasn't working, and you were able to adjust almost pretty much immediately. And it's in many instances it meant deviating from the sort of plan that you had for the day.
Exactly. Yep. And I mean, it's they learn by doing things. I always say to somebody when I came out to high school, I said, why do I need to know the parts of a plant? Why do I need to dissect a frog, for example? It means nothing to me at the end of the day. I'm not going to be doing this in the real world. But if you show them the programs they can write, the games that they can create, by just learning that, not necessarily learning, okay, this is how you do loops, this is how you do this, but actually working by example, makes them at the end of the day, they can see the result of what they're creating, and therefore they'll know, oh, this is why I need to know this. This is why this works. So for me, learning by example is probably a key. And then also the fact that we had those computers there, and the ability for these kids to be able to use those computers there meant that they have access to doing things that they couldn't normally do before. Dietrich Maravian was quite key with regards to it, because when they weren't on Saturdays with us, they opened the doors for the kids to use those labs. So, having the ability to access those resources and utilize those resources is key with regards to getting this program done. And I always say in my classes, it's like a weekly thing. I always say, we start off the day, we say, guys, we learn by our mistakes. Everybody, if they make a mistake, that's an opportunity to learn. Because if you get everything right for the rest of the course, then we've learned nothing about when things go wrong. And one example was I was doing a conditional formatting where I try to compare if this happened or that happened, when I should have said if this happened and this happens, it didn't work. And Umzoli, one of the kids that we had there, pointed out that we could do it a different way. And we just switched gears and we did it that way instead. In my silliness, I couldn't think of the what the solution was at the time, but the kids picked up and said, "Okay, why don't we do it this way? This could work." And we did it that way, and it did work. So it was another way of finding things. So that was a very good example of learning from that mistake that I had made.
Yeah.
And that comes to the last point with regards to we learn with them. It's we learn, they learn. If they find a different way of doing it, let's do it. Let's try it out, because then they've achieved something. At the end of the day, we learned from when we started off the first lesson we did, realized maybe that's not the right approach.
They're handing out the manuals at the start
manuals
of the lesson.
Yeah, I mean, they started reading the manuals and tried to go ahead, and they weren't, and then that meant other kids that weren't ahead of them were falling behind. So we took the manuals away. I mean, it gave it to them at the end of the day rather than giving it to them during the day, which is, I mean, it seems like maybe a silly teacher's mistake. I mean, most teachers won't do that, but we learned from that.
Yeah.
But the other thing we learned as well is that, computer literacy and programming is not two separate things. It's actually the same thing.
Yeah.
Because if I show them how to use Paint, at that same point, they can then create their own sprites to use in Scratch to build their game, and not necessarily use a sprite editor. So you can't just say, okay, let's do it in separation from each other. I mean, things like we learned, for example, how to use the shift key and how to use copy, paste, and cut. Those kind of things could have been done in Scratch as well. So it's not necessarily something where the two are separate from each other. We started by doing it separately, but we realized that we actually can do it at the same time. We can combine what they've learned.
Yeah.
So definitely we learned as they learned as well, from our side. And I think at the end of the day, we found a place that works for both us and the kids at the end of the day, which is great. What we covered for September to now, we did computer literacy, which was, like I said, was at the time it was separate, and going into next year we'll probably do it more in combination with each other. But we did computer literacy. We did the computer principles, teaching them what a computer actually means. For example, somebody thought, the projector that we used was a computer. And to a degree, some of them are, but the simplest of projectors are not. So the fact of an input, output, and a process in between. So those things we have to teach him with regards to what is a computer, what isn't a computer.
Yeah.
And then storage of files, copy, cut, paste, undo. It was funny to see that the teachers, because we do have teachers that attend the Saturday classes with us, and they learned those things, which is strange. I mean, like you say, we take this for granted, but for me, it's obviously just the shortcut keys, and a lot of them didn't know what those keys were. They struggled with copy paste.
As he also protecting the integrity of some of the Lace Up for Change support group who were learning more than the students were.
Yeah, that was funny. There was something they started sitting down and started to do the projects themselves. We spoke about this. Obviously, we did searching, and we did AI chat as well. And Word and PowerPoint. I definitely want to focus on Word and PowerPoint a bit more, and then hopefully go into Excel as well, because that's the tools they'll be using for high school.
Yeah.
They're going to be putting research papers together. They're going to be presenting that results to the class. They're going to be doing something, maybe doing accounting, so they need to know Excel. So getting them involved into those programs up front, and not having them try and learn while the other kids are already doing the work, so try and do it up front. So I want to focus a bit more on that also next year as well. In the Scratch, we did a few different, what we call coding blocks. That includes stuff like sprites and backgrounds, motions, changing the looks of things, adding sound, creating events, controlling the the way the blocks worked, using sensing when things touch each other, and then also using operators and variables. So there's all things I learned in Scratch, which is very much used in programming today, in other languages as well. So what they learned as blocks, it's actually code in other languages as well. They learned for loops. They learned, if and then statements. All those things are part of Scratch and part of coding as well. That was a good year, and I think we covered a lot in that short
period.
limited September, and and all the way to November. So I think we covered quite a lot in that time period. In going ahead, for term one, what we discussed is, we want to involve other NGOs. If we talking seriously about paying it forward, then then at the end of the day, we don't hold the key to everything. We happy to work with other NGOs, so that they can teach other kids. We only have a group, and we want to grow bigger, but we're not going to grow bigger on our own. We're going to need the help of other NGOs as well. So if we can continue this program and empower those NGOs to carry it forward, then I think we've done more with more people. We can achieve more with more people as well, and more hands. And they can also help us identify the schools in need. And then also we wanted to make sure term one is training the trainers and getting volunteers on board, to go to other schools and to go to other places to teach the same, because what we learnt and taught in Dietrich Moraven, we can carry it on to other schools as well, and hopefully other learners will get the benefit of that as well. So we definitely want to focus on trainer training in term one, and in term two, we're probably going to go back at doing the computer literacy and Scratch again, because there was a lot of the kids there that's leaving Dietrich Moraven, they're going to high school.
I think
we're going to have
almost 70% of that class was grade 7.
Yes. Yeah. And so we're going to have a whole new set of learners coming in from currently grade 5 now going to grade 6. So we're going to get them in and start teaching them. And I mean, you saw the looks on their faces with regards to, a lot of the kids that were outside of the computer class in classes wanted to see what was happening inside the computer lab. So you're definitely keen as to wanting to get involved as well. So hopefully we can get those kids in next year. And then term 3 and term 4 are going to focus on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and also Python. I think the two marries, JavaScript and Python marries well with each other, in the sense that they're both coding languages, so it wouldn't be difficult to show them, when we do this, it's the same as what we do in Python. We can cover both languages quite similarly without having to confuse it too much, because sometimes the syntax just changes, but the kind of the essential coding practice is still the same. So we definitely want to cover that for next year. Yeah, and I think we speak about this a lot with regards to what we need. We don't have the resources to do everything. We don't have the money and the funds to do everything. But there are people that can help us. They may not necessarily have everything that we need, but they may have something they can use. So we're definitely looking for some kind of sponsorships. Things like if there's venues that we can use for maybe we're talking about maybe churches as well. Yep, or trainer places where we can use to do these trainings. Other schools that we can focus on. Definitely, if we can enable that, NGOs could help us with that as well. We need the trainers, the staff. Some of them will be volunteers, some of them will be actual teachers, and hopefully at some point, some of them will be the learners that are from our program that can then teach the other kids as well. I mean, if you look at the fact that we have, like you said, 80% of the kids were grade 7s going to high school. There were still grade 6s that we could utilize to train the new lot of kids, in the classes as well, and hopefully make them become our assistants with regards to it. Definitely the ability to print and to give material and hand out documents. I mean, we trained 20 kids this year, and printing 20 manuals every week. It's for 20 kids. It's quite a lot.
Expensive, eh?
Yeah, and ink is expensive as well. And the equipment as well. I mean, if you go to other schools, we have to use and understand that may not necessarily have computers, and they may not necessarily have projectors. And some of the teachers and the volunteers may not have the equipment to go to the schools. So
Yeah.
we definitely need access to that kind of stuff, whether it's on loan, or if it's something that we can that's donated, or or something that's in the school themselves, the schools have available to us, and we can utilize those resources. But I mean, Faisal, every Saturday I come with my lead, I come with a multi adapter, I come with my projector, I come with my laptop, because that's during the week I create the content for the presentation, and sometimes so I bring my Wi-Fi unit, because sometimes it's slow. So I
Yeah.
bring those things with me. I can't expect everywhere else to have the same.
Yeah, no,
And
exactly, and I
mm,
think it's important that the funding and support that is
mm,
needed, as as you did say, but I'd
yeah,
really like to emphasize this point that it is not always monetary.
mm,
Um, many corporates, after their laptops are 2 years old, they start
yep,
upgrading.
yep,
Um, you know,
mm,
can we get those and refurbish them? I mean, we can refurbish it ourselves.
yeah,
Um, if your IT department doesn't have the capacity,
mm,
projectors that you aren't using.
yep,
Um, so it's not just monetary.
mm,
Venue. Um, um, this can expand into adult classes.
mm, mm,
So
absolutely,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. And then, because we're doing website design, I've been to help host the website. So one of the projects that we are going to do for the kids with HTML is create their own portfolio CV
yeah,
page for themselves, and to promote themselves. Hopefully, they can build on that page and add more things onto it. But will be a professional looking page that they'll design with stylish design and look and feel. And we're hoping that they can use that to promote themselves at the end of the day, to hopefully use it as well with regards to showing the future jobs and the future
yeah.
bosses, to show this is what I can do, this is the content I can create. So we're looking for that as well, the hosting spaces, and the hosting guys as well, to be able to assist us with that.
So
And
just
then
on that, if
mm,
I can just add one thing there, and I
mm,
think it's an important point, especially for those who don't, with all due respect, who don't necessarily understand the IT arena.
mm,
Um, historically, you needed to have done your MCSE, your A plus, etc., etc. But these days, the way things have shifted, there's a big shift based on experience and what you can do,
yes,
more than diploma, the certificate of whatever courses that you've attended.
mm,
And what these kids are learning, they'll actually be able to produce them with having the space, a portfolio of evidence that
exactly,
speaks to their skill. So
yes.
the hosting providers of the world out there,
Mm. Yeah, if you can help us as well, that'd be great. I would hate to have the sites just hosted on a PC somewhere, and then when
yeah,
they leave, it disappears again, and they spent all that work and effort not being able to kind of see the fruits of their labor.
yeah.
And to be honest with you, I mean, this kids can't take it everyone's home, because they don't have a PC to take it home to. So yeah, it'd be definitely great if we could have a place for them to have for a while, that they can show kind of what they're capable of doing, hopefully in their work career as well.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I think this is a program that you five have been running prior to me coming on board, which is feeding the kids. When I got to the school, one of the first things Lace Up for Change was doing was feeding the kids in the morning with breakfast, and that's so important. On the Saturdays as well, is making sure that they're fed. You yourself say, and I'm going to coin a phrase from you, with regards, you can't teach a hungry child, and that's the
That's not
philosophy. I
my
mean,
phrase, by the way.
I know, but you use it a lot. I say it's your phrase because you use it quite a lot. But the thing is, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to feed kids. You've got to make sure it's part of the program. I mean, we give them a drink, we give them a cool drink and something to eat. But and in the mornings, before we start on a Saturday, they get porridge as well. So, but at the end of the day, it's they're not going to learn if they're hungry.
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And I mean, like you say, the kids walk quite a distance. They come hungry. They don't enough fed, and we need to feed them as well. So it
If I
sounds
can just,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but if I'd also like to take this opportunity to give thanks to Pioneer Foods and Meals on Wheels for their support, as well as Dairy Mart. Every month we're getting wheat bix from Pioneer Foods, which goes, one of the recipients is Dietrich Moravian. So,
Mm.
and Dairy Mart, which sponsors us with milk. It's we mentioned this a few times now in this talk. We take so much for granted. I'll never forget Dietrich Moravian. The very, very first time we fed at that school, and we fed them Weet-Bix. And, we're handing out these bowls of Weet-Bix with warm milk. And this kid goes, yo, Weet-Bix, my bro. And he takes a bit from, and he puts some in his mouth, and he looks at his friend, met regte melk en suiker op, ja. And I stood there and I was like, wow.
Milk and sugar.
Yeah,
Exactly.
milk and
Things
sugar.
Things we take for granted, eh? It's definitely something we to assist with. But also feeding, I mean, we do send them, they start at 9 in the mornings. They get fed first, and then we start the program at 9 on a Saturday morning. And then they leave after 12. So maybe we could send them home with the lunch. They have a full day. That will help a lot, to be honest with you. So we're not asking for anything from our own personal perspective with regards to something for Faisal or something for Derek. It's more a case of what can we do for these kids. Everything we're asking for is for the kids themselves, not necessarily for us at all. The idea is essentially we do want to get other volunteers and other staff to train. Some of them won't do it for nothing, and we're going to be honest about that. But at the end of the day, it's the ability to take this program beyond ourselves, and hopefully we can get people on board that can support us and help us. So what I want to show is this is the program that I taught the kids a few weeks ago. And basically, it's a great snow. So let me show you what it does. You can see the snow coming down, eh?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so what the concept of this was to show, how to create a clone of one sprite and make the clone size bigger. It drops at a different speed. Deleting the clones, you see at the bottom, these clones disappear, or snowflakes disappear. And the idea is to teach them with regards to creating a clone. That was one of the lessons we did. And then, the kids then took that and said, okay, if that's what we can do, then I think it was Anastasia and Leona said, okay, we could use that to build. Apparently, it's a game that you get when your Google Play is not connected to the internet, which I have not experienced.
I've not experienced that either. Yeah,
yeah, but apparently that's what they used to. And there's a game
we
in
sound bougie,
Google
eh?
Play. Yeah, no, but it's something you learn. We learn from these kids. So they created a game based on that game, using the snowflakes that I showed them to do. So they then created this, and there's gonna be some sound on this. So what they've done is essentially built a game from that concept of the clone, and the idea is that they've evolved from what I showed them to something else. They took the concepts from the other weeks as well and put it all into one place. So it was something that they adapted, and that's kind of what we've been teaching them is taking something from kind of the basics and then building onto that, and eventually create mini games out of the one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. They took that concept on. I mean, this is a game they created from scratch from themselves, but using the concept that I showed them previously. Okay, so the other game was a scary story. It was from Cassie, and I've got the other person worked on it as well, and they created a game that was based on the story, which we had done in our lesson number 2 or 3, was how to do stories with Scratch. And David created their own game, and dubbed it their own way as well. They did their own voice recordings on it to create the game at the end of the day.
Zou dit zo zeker dat we daar gaan?
Ja, ik zeker dood voor zeker.
Oké, so mo si worry so gaan aan. At di na nilaas na ba sumat gaan?
Okay, my besluit.
So that was pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's funny too. And I remember them running out the classroom with your laptop to go and record it in the office because they didn't want anyone to hear.
And then the last video I want to show, which you'll put up as well. So the last video I want to show is essentially the evolution from what we started with to where we ended off at the end of November. So it literally is it's chronological in the sense that we started with building a simple thing of making your name spin around and making a cat move, to then we did a story making a dinosaur jump over trees, and then we went on to other things as well. And eventually, what you've seen at the end of the video is the result of what the kids then started creating themselves. Yeah. So it's definitely evolution of everything we did from September with regards to Scratch all the way to November.
is Oluchegula. I will tell you what I enjoyed about the program today. I really enjoyed the Scratch program because it allowed me to express my creativity through coding. I love how I can create my own characters called sprites and make them move or change color by just connecting a few blocks of code. Scratch is much more easier when you have a teacher like Mr. Berry because it's the teacher that I know the teacher is the best teacher that I know so far. Overall, the program was challenging yet rewarding, and I feel comfortable to put my ability in the real world.
My name is Edina Kutubu. What I enjoyed most about the program was the way Mr. Derek taught us what patience is and how he made us understand that we can learn from our mistakes. The other thing that I enjoyed about the program was the amazing games we made that I thought I could make.
In Scratch, I learned a few things that I never knew, such as conditionals like if-else statements and loops like repeat forever and while loops to control the flow of their program.
The thing that I learned was how to use Scratch and how to make games that you can see in Play Store or any game store.
I found out that there is a business that is called Scratch Game Developer. This job involves creating games using Scratch. Scratch Game Developer design, build, and test games for various platforms, including web, mobile, and desktop. Scratch Game Developer is something I'm considering as a potential career.
I found out that with coding you can get jobs like being a cell phone or laptop maker. You can also make robots with coding. Thank you for your time.
Anybody wanting to know more information or looking to get involved in this project, whether it is offering up some of your time as an IT professional to help facilitate these classes or wanting to sponsor in any shape or form to this project, please get a hold of us in the details up on the screen, and we'll be more than happy to pick up the conversation with you.